Join me right now on Kumite Radio is pure MMA boss and former king of Pancrase, Andy Main. What's going on, Andy?
What's up, man? Good to see you again.
Yeah, definitely. How does it feel to be signed by Bellator?
Yeah, it feels great. Coming back, I was excited to get that fight with LFA. They're a really good organization here in the United States. And I kind of figured that I was going to be in a building phase where I was going to have to win a handful of regional fights before I would bump back up to, some of the bigger shows. But just worked out, I won that fight and literally I walked out of the cage. My managers asked me how I was feeling. Did I have any injuries? I said, no, I'm feeling good. They said, what do you think about Bellator in 4 weeks? I was like, let me tell you how I feel tomorrow. And I felt good. So yeah, might as well. I'm in shape. I took enough time off, right? Might as well just get right back to it.
Speaking of that LFA 49, you beat, a decent name, Saul Almeida, last September. How do you assess the performance you had that night?
I was feeling really good. I think on the feet, I really got a chance to showcase things I've been working on over the last few years. I'm kind of more known to be a grappler, but ironically, it's because people are always trying to take me down. I'm comfortable on the ground, but I enjoy boxing. I enjoy kickboxing. I feel I'm really good at it. I get in there with some of the best guys in the world in training. So, I know where I stand. So I got to showcase that a little bit. After I rocked him in the second round after that. He didn't really want to mix it up on the feet anymore. And I'll give it to him. He did a good job of really frustrating me, being able to hold me up against the cage. I'm not used to fighting guys that are quite that long. He was a good 1.5 inches taller than me, 2 inches taller than me, and longer than me. I'm just not used to that. And he was like a wet blanket. So it was a little bit frustrating for about a half a round. And then thankfully I was able to get to his back and finish strong. But overall, I mean, for taking basically almost 3 years off with the one fight in Korea in between, which was also at a different weight class, I was happy with it. And I'm very critical of myself. So anything that I was doing wrong, believe me, I'm working on it, and I'm going to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Yeah, you went back down to featherweight for this fight, for the last fight, I mean. And how did you feel? Did you feel 100% or 110%?
Yeah, I definitely feel that featherweight for me is my weight class. I really don't walk around that heavy. When I'm training regularly and running and doing everything that I need to be doing, it's really not a hard weight cut for me. I'm a lean guy. I feel I'm strong for my build, but I'm a lean guy. So I felt good. It's good to be getting to go in there and work with guys that are more the size that I'm that I feel comfortable wrestling with, grappling with, fighting, everything else. I'll step up. I like to take challenges. The Road FC opportunity was a big opportunity, and when I fought on the Ultimate Fighter, I did 155. So I've stepped up. Even my first 2 fights in Pancrase were 155, but I wasn't any bigger. I just stepped up to take advantage of the opportunity. Some of them worked out, some of them didn't. So but I think I'm definitely going to finish out my career at 145 because it's where I feel the best.
Nassau Coliseum, Bellator 208. You are facing Henry Corrales. You're making your promotional debut. How did this deal come together?
My understanding, and I could be off on it slightly, was that I'm pretty sure my buddy, actually Dylan Dennis, was supposed to be on the card against somebody else. He ended up getting hurt. And not, they decided to postpone having him on the fight. So they put Henry on the fight. And I don't know if he had an opponent or if it was short notice and they didn't have an opponent for him. But all I know is that they came looking for an opponent about 2 days before my last fight. My managers didn't mention anything to me until after the fight, obviously. But immediately after the fight, they wanted to know if I would take it. I took basically a day just to watch Henry a little bit and really just let my coaches assess him as a matchup. And also I wanted to see how I felt. Sometimes you get out of the cage, you feel great, and then 2 days later you realize you're you know, your knee is jacked up, your elbow's jacked up. So you never know. So I gave it about a day and a half, felt pretty good. And I knew I was going to take the fight. But I just wanted to, you know, do my due diligence, let my coaches do their due diligence. And that was it. And I just said, yeah, let's do it.
Your opponent, Corrales, he trains out of MMA Lab in Arizona. How do you think he stacks up against your previous opponents?
I mean, he's definitely a step up in competition. I think, you know, he's on a 3-fight streak. It's really hard to judge because somebody like him, you know, he was 12-0 coming into Bellator. I don't know what the quality of his opponents were. I don't really worry too much about that stuff because, you know, I could say, oh, he hasn't really fought anybody tough prior to Bellator. Obviously, in Bellator, he's fought some tough guys. And but you never know. I mean, you know, like you don't put together a 15-3 record and not be pretty good. So I have to take him seriously. I have to assume that he's, you know, he knows how to win. I know, you know, he came into Bellator and lost 3 fights in a row against you know, a couple of tough guys. And, you know, and me personally, I feel like I'm at that level. I'm at the level of the type of guy that has beaten him. And I think I'm at a higher level. I think a lot of the guys that I've fought so many guys with a lot of experience, and, you know, I don't even know if I've ever fought anybody with a losing record, you know, like, so I'm used to fighting winners. And it's just, he's a guy that I got to go in there and make sure that I don't make mistakes. And I think I can do very well.
Yeah, Corrales, he's somewhat having a resurgence in his career. He's in the middle of a resurgence. You are in the beginning of your resurgence, so it makes an interesting dynamic of this matchup. It
is, you know, and you know, like I know I've taken time off, and I know my fight previous to my time off was a loss. However, you know, if you really go back and understand my record, you know, my last loss was at a different weight class with a broken rib, you know, so like take that for what it's worth. And then, you know, prior to that, I won, you know, all my fights in Pancrase except for one draw, which was also at a different weight class. You know, really the only time I've lost at 145 pounds was against Kenny Foster in CFFC like 4 or 5 years ago. And even that was a split decision loss. One judge gave me all 3 rounds. And, you know, like I said, I'm very critical of my own fights, but I believe 100% that I won that fight. You know, I hit him over 150 times, 160 times in that fight, and he hit me like 20, and I took him down. Like, I'm not really sure what they were watching. So, I mean, realistically, I haven't lost at 145 pounds as far as I'm concerned since before the Ultimate Fighter. So, you know, like, I'm confident, you know, like I said, at 145 pounds, I really truly believe I'm one of the best in the world. As long as I go out there and perform and do what I know how to do, it doesn't matter who's standing in front of me. I'm excited to get in there with a guy who is making a resurgence and is a player in the division. I want to step right into Bellator and let everybody know that I'm here.
You're 29 years old. You've had 10 years of experience basically in MMA competition. Do you feel that right now you're in your prime?
I think, yeah, I've never felt better than I feel right now. I think the maturity and the experience that, you know, you hear about when you're a young up and coming, you know, whatever, you don't worry about it, right? You're like, I can handle it, whatever. But when you get those wars under your belt and you get those, you know, like literally a decade of traveling around the world and fighting some of the best fighters in Japan and Korea and doing the Ultimate Fighter and all of these different things, I'm just in a different place than I was even 5 years ago. Mentally, physically, I feel the best I've felt since, I mean, you know, my first knee injury to my knee was literally like 8 years ago. I just never got it fixed, you know, until I blew out my ACL after my title fight. So, you know, now both my knees are fixed and they feel better than ever. You know, my last fight, like, cardio didn't even play a factor. Like, it just, I really feel like I am hitting my prime, and just overall as a complete fighter and as a mature fighter, I feel excellent. And you know, and my training's on point. I really can't say anything, you know, right now. Everything has been going the way that I want it to go. I'm much smarter in the way that I approach training. So yeah, I think I've entered into that prime, and I hope I can do something with it.
Leading up to this fight, I know you've been traveling to other gyms, training, sparring, getting ready for this matchup. Where have you gone and who have you been working with?
So the primary places that I train is I do a lot of my grappling at my own gym, Pure Mixed Martial Arts. My brother trains here, and a lot of very high level guys come here from all over the place to train, and so I get very high level grappling consistently. I go 2 to 3 days a week up to Tiger Schulman's, and I train with the professional fight team there. And you have your Julio Arce, Jimmy Rivera, Mike Trezano, who just won the Ultimate Fighter, Lyman Good, who is a former Bellator champion and a player at 170 in the UFC. I mean, just and then a whole bunch of guys you've never heard of that are monsters. And particularly on the feet, but really everywhere. So I spend 3 days a week there, and then I train at a gym called Carnicella MMA, just with one guy, Frankie Benefuente, who is also on the card. He's a really high-level wrestler, good grappler, so we just go in and just the two of us mix it up for 4 or 5 rounds once a week. And then I also go up to Miller Brothers. Jim Miller has been a training partner of mine for a long time. His team. And then Brian McLaughlin is my head coach, who has been my head coach for the past 8 years. So, I get it in. I get it in everywhere.
Speaking of a resurgence, Jim Miller.
I've always said Jim's one of the most inspiring people that I've ever trained with, and that I still train with. I've seen him from before he was in the UFC. That's when I started training with him, and I was only 18 years old. Just thinking, and I didn't even know at the time that I was going to make any kind of career out of fighting or anything like that. I've seen his ups, I've seen his downs, I've seen him go through his bout with Lyme disease. I've seen him on the brink of retirement. I've cornered him in the UFC. So it's every time I see him win, it's special. And I'm really excited to see him win and win in dominant fashion, the way that, kind of the old Jim Miller that we know. Because I know he's got it. I know he's got it in the tank. And, he's still one of the toughest dudes that I train with. And it's, it's awesome to see him win.
All right, Bellator 208, Corrales, you get the win. Where do you think it puts you in the stacked featherweight division that Bellator has?
I mean, to be honest, I think it puts me right in the mix with those, those top 10 guys. I know there's a handful of guys on the come up right now. I know there's a couple established guys at the top. I don't know. I think it throws me right into that mix for sure. I don't think there's going to be any easy fights for me. It's just going to be getting to it, and like I said, that's what I'm looking for. I'm like, I do believe I'm in my prime, and I don't want to waste time. I want to get in there. I want to get in there often. This was a 4-week turnaround. I don't know if I'm always going to do 4-week turnarounds, but every 2 to 3 months, I'd like to be out there. I'd like to, go after the top guys in the division. I'd like to travel with them. I know they're going to Hawaii in a couple months, maybe, jump on cards like that. But I'd like to fight outside of the East Coast and just take advantage of whatever this career's got left for me with Bellator. And I'm excited about it.
Yeah, the promotion, they sign you, they give you a contender as your first fight, and you're on the main card. They must have a lot of, they see a future in you, I believe.
I think it's a combination. I think that they see somebody, they probably see somebody who's got potential to have a future with the division. Definitely. Realistically, how can they not? I mean, I really don't think there's many people just in general that have the kind of experience that I have. I mean, from all the different promotions that I've fought for all over the country, and like I said, I've proven that I'm a player on the worldwide scene, and I'm just glad to be. Believe me, it was frustrating having to sit on the sideline for so long. So yeah, I think that I believe that they see that, and not for nothing, when you're looking for it's just right time, right place, and they needed a fighter on 4 weeks notice, and nobody's going to take a guy like Henry Corrales if you're not in shape, you know. And I just happened to be in the best shape of my life going into that fight, and coming out uninjured. It was an easy decision for me. So, you know, and I think promotions see that, you know, they know that, hey, this guy stepped up, took it on 4 weeks notice. They know I know he's a contender. They know, you know, stepping up on a main card, first fight in Bellator. I mean, all that stuff's a big deal. So, you know, hopefully it sends the message to them that, like, I'm here to stay. And, you know, I'm here to fight. I'm not, you know, I'm not a guy that's just going to play games. I'm here to just, you know, get in there and do what I do.
All right, October 13th, Bellator 208. You can catch Andy Main taking on Henry Corrales. Thank you for your time, Andy.
Thanks, man. Always good to chat with you.